I made a mistake while repairing my KTM 1290, and it led to some pretty nasty consequences. You could make the same mistake and not even notice. Let me show you. Hey, I'm Dan. I show practical technical tasks you can do yourself. It's really easy. I don't repair for a living. It's a hobby. Degrees in electrical and electronics engineering plus IT. After that training, mechanical and electronic gremlins don't spook me. Most of this happens out in the yard with basic tools such as electrical tape, zip ties, and the occasional toothpick. And if you've been here before, welcome back to another episode of my technical adventures. I've got the knowledge, the tools, and the hands for the job, usually 2 out of 3 to begin with. The last one turns up eventually. Maybe. You might be wondering what I'm doing here again. Well, I'm taking the bike apart. Again. But since you've already seen all that, I'll speed things up. And here's some cheerful music to set the mood. Not long ago I had to replace the crankshaft position sensor. Remember that video? Well, after a while, things started to get weird. The bike began to run a bit rougher, extra vibrations, harsher tone. Normally I wouldn't even notice. But vibrations are my personal nightmare. I can feel the difference even between fuel brands. Call it a mechanic's OCD. Then it got worse. During hard acceleration, bam! The engine would misfire and the bike would nosedive, always at exactly 3,500 RPM. You can imagine, that's just when you're pulling away from a traffic light. It scared me, and probably a few drivers behind me. The worst part? It wasn't consistent. Sometimes it was perfect. And then, like the planets aligned just wrong. It all came back. First I blamed the spark plugs, so at the next service I asked the dealer to replace them. It helped, but only for about 700 or maybe 1000 kilometers. Then the misfires returned, and when it was cold, the bike would sometimes stall a minute after starting, but never when hot. So I suspected the ignition coils, maybe they were tired after 60,000 kilometers. Bought a full used set in great condition, looked brand new. Nope, same story. Then I thought it must be the wiring, but found nothing wrong there either. I rode like that for around 7,000 kilometers. But there was one more clue. Right after posting that sensor video, a guy named FredH4641 commented, "Did you set the correct gap on the sensor? If not, it'll act up around 3000 RPM. At the time everything worked fine, so I ignored it. I couldn't even see how to adjust that gap. You'd have to bend the bracket with a crowbar to change it, I thought, so I forgot about it, until recently, when it all started to make sense. So now I've decided to tear it all apart again, and finally put an end to this sensor gap mystery. I'm not sure if that's the cause, but it's worth checking. I even came up with a theory. If the gap is wrong, it could throw off the ignition timing, cause detonation, and make the ECU cut spark, or pull timing to protect itself. Anyway, no point waiting. I've already got half the bike in pieces. Wait, remember how I said I usually start with only 2 out of 3? Well, the third one just arrived. Meet my homemade tool. Let me show you how it was born. You probably remember how stubborn that generator cover was. I decided to make a puller. I didn't want to use a single big bolt like people suggest, for 2 reasons. First, the cover is thin and soft. I was afraid of damaging the threads in the cover. Second, M24 by 1.5 bolts are pricey. At the time I couldn't find one cheaper than 15 euros, which is silly. So I tried a different route. I searched my parts supplier for anything with M24 by 1.5 threads. Surprise! A regular gearbox drain plug matched perfectly, and it cost €1.79. Drill a hole, tap it, add a pusher, and you've got a neat puller that's hard to mess up and far less likely to damage the cover. I had 10 taps on hand, all 3 taper, second and finish, so cutting clean threads was easy. For the pusher, I used a threaded stud from a hardware store. Cost about €1. Drop it in and voila, ready to go. I won't show the plastics removal, but I will show how fast the cover comes off with this homemade puller. It's quick and drama-free. The generator cover came off easily, well, after a little persuasion, with a fist. Wouldn't be me without that. No regrets about making this puller. Not a single one. Don't forget the washers. They go right back in their places, see? Some people said I forgot them last time. Let's measure the gap. Last time I checked, the sensor wasn't touching the rotor. I'm using valve feeler gauges. According to the manual, it should be 0.5 millimeter. Let's try the 0.3mm gauge first. Whoa, didn't expect that. I thought it would be fine. Okay, what do we have here? 0.1mm? That's way too small. Now let me explain why I originally thought this gap couldn't be adjusted. See these small bushings around the sensor bolts? They're meant to keep the sensor from moving. The engine case has holes for those bushings. From a distance, they look perfectly round. A bit of old thread locker makes it even harder to tell. So I assumed the sensor could only sit in one position. But once you zoom in, surprise, they're actually oval. Plus, the rotor magnets pull it tight, like it's locked in place. Turns out, if you just screw the bolts in slightly, so the magnets don't grab it, you can actually move the sensor with a screwdriver, about 1mm of range. Okay, time to do it properly. Reapply thread lacquer, tighten the sensor lightly so the magnets don't pull it around. Insert the 0.5mm feeler gauge. Press it gently and hand tighten the bolts. That's it. It's not going anywhere now. Now stack two gauges to make 0.6mm. They shouldn't fit. Perfect. 0.5 goes in, just right. Torque it down and check again. I can't afford to mess this up twice. 0.5 mm, just like in the manual. Looks good, we can reassemble. Everything's the same here. New gasket, and I added a bit of silicone around the wires. I'll put the cover back on using the puller as well. Much more controlled that way. All bolts go in by hand first, and I double check their length. There are two bolt lengths, and if you mess them up, don't worry. It's not the end of the world. I just make sure each one sticks out about 7mm before tightening. If it's higher, it's the wrong hole. Easy. Then I tighten them crosswise and finish with the torque wrench. The filter's a bit dirty this time. Let's speed it up a little. We've done this so many times, you could probably change the oil with your eyes closed by now. I change the oil every 10,000 kilometers. That's about twice a season. And the chain every 20. So, every second oil change. Pretty much a yearly ritual at this point. Time for fresh oil. While the tank's off, it's much easier to do. I still haven't printed that special funnel I designed for clean refills. Maybe next time. I'll make a video about it. I really like this shot. You can clearly see the oil flowing in. For me, that's the signal. The job's almost done. We're putting the bike back together. Quickly this time. No, I won't torture you with long explanations about every bolt. But the moment the tank goes back on, that's a special one for me. First start after reassembly. You know the camera can't really capture it, but the bike sounds different now. And the vibration feels different too. Or maybe it's just in my head. Either way, there's only one way to find out. Let's go for a test ride. So I headed out to a dirt road in the forest away from traffic, where I could push the bike through all the modes that used to trigger the problem. And you know what? Everything was fine. Actually, better than fine. The bike feels smoother, more elastic. The power delivery is even, and it just pulls beautifully. Before I knew it, the test ride had turned into a full-on forest rampage. I don't usually ride like that, but this time, I swear, the bike made me do it. By the time I got back home, I was genuinely happy. The kind of happy you only get when a problem's finally solved and the machine runs exactly the way it should. The next test was city traffic. I was a bit worried. Maybe I just got lucky before and the problem would show up again in stop-and-go conditions. But no, I rode through the city, tried every harsh start I could, launched hard from traffic lights, and still nothing. The fears were completely unfounded. Everything worked perfectly. Fixing this problem gave me real satisfaction. It forced me to think, to analyze, and to actually listen to advice. I dug even deeper into the mechanics and electronics of this bike, and learned a lot more than I expected. Oh, and now I've got a full set of ignition coils, almost brand new and completely useless for now. Funny how a 0.5 mm gap can cause so much trouble. Such a tiny thing, and yet it changed everything. 15,000 kilometers later, everything's still perfect. No vibrations, no misfires, nothing to complain about. Honestly, that feels a bit strange. Guess I'll have to find another problem to fix. Can't keep my hands still after all. So, see you soon. I know exactly what happened next and I can't wait to tell you all about it.